What is going on, Variety 1707? I am back, yes, back with yet another YouTube video. On the last video was me in front of my house with my rose bushes, giving you guys a channel update. And on today's video, this is a lot different. This is what I look like. That's first. Second, I wanted to do a little bit of a different video. As you see, I have a notebook here with, on my off time, I do history notes, and I like to watch people, history documentaries. I like to take notes on them. I thought maybe this would be a good opportunity for me to share some of my notes that I have on a video, and I'll give you the guy's name. He's a very good person that does history videos, and if you guys are interested, look him up and subscribe to his channel. He does really good content. So his name is Jeffery the Librarian, and this was his video on the French and Indian War era. He's really big on the Civil War, you know, what's going on in that time frame of history. And my notes start off as this: when did the French-Indian War start? Well, it started in 1754 and it ended in 1763. The ratio to this that I wrote down was about 40,000 Frenchmen to about 100 million British. At this time, the policies were complicated. So it really wasn't the Indian and French, it was more of the Indian. Both the French and the British had Indian allies. And so the policies were complicated in the 1750s, where the French allied nations were against the British allied nations. Instead of the French and Indian War, it was the French allied nations with the Indians and the British allied nations with the Indians as well. On July 3rd, 1754, the French and the Indian force were sent against Washington. And this was George Washington, but before he became president, he was a general. And they struck Washington at Fort Necessity. Now, this was the battle at Fort Necessity, and the results was that Washington surrenders and the French force spares Washington's men, allowing them to return to Virginia at that time. This next battle that happened was on July 9th, 1755, and it was Braddock's force goes to Fort Duquesne. The results of that battle, was Braddock's force was defeated by French and Indian warriors. 2/3, which is about 66%, of Braddock's force was destroyed, and Washington yet again survives. The next battle, and I'm flipping over my notes here, was on September 8th, 1755, which was the battle at Lake George. Johnson's force on Lake George was attacked by French and the Indian force. Lake George is a heavily militarized front, so they had a lot of, it was an area where, as Jeffery the Librarian describes, the military front was huge. There was a lot of areas on that. And then I stopped on that day of taking notes, and on the next day, I write, on March 27th, 1756, the French allied nations strike Fort Bull. New France, Governor General is, Vanderville. Okay. Britain has officially declared war on France, beginning the 7 Years' War, and has effects in battles fought in Central Europe. So basically, it was France, Austria, Saxony, Russia, Spain, and Sutter, and the Allies on France's side was Britain, Prussia, and Hanover. So this is way beyond, or way before time. You know, we don't think of Hanover as a place anymore, or Prussia. And so on July 30th, 1756, the French forces, the Allied nations, strike and destroy Fort Granville. On August 14th, 1756, the French connections and nations under Montcalm capture Fort Oswego. It is destroyed. Actually, it was burned down. Results: Lake Ontario is controlled by the French. At this point, it was part of France at that time. On June 30th, 1756, Loudon arrives at Halifax. His campaign comes to a stop as French warships come to defend Les Bourgeois. On August 3rd, 1757, Montcalm lays siege on Fort William Henry. So another one of Montcalm's pursuits. On August 3rd, 1750... Oh, well, I just read that. My bad. On August 9th, 1757, the British at Fort William Henry surrender. So the British at that point were camped at Fort Henry, and they surrender because the French is then coming at that time. The result was Montcalm promises the British honors of war. And what does the honors of war mean? Well, the British were allowed to leave with their pride. So the honors of war basically meant we do not kill you, you leave, and you got defeated. On June 8th, 1758, Amherst lands near Fort Louisbourg. A long siege then begins with that. On July 8th, 1758, the British attack Fort Caroline. Montcalm has defenses well prepared. He knew that the British were coming, so he set his defenses as such. Result: the French and Indians are outnumbered 5-1. Montcalm defends attack. British suffers loss, and they withdraw. On July 26, 1758, Fort Louisbourg falls to the British, so the French then lose what they had just captured with Montcalm to the British. St. Lawrence River is now open to Quebec. So at that point, the St. Lawrence River, and on this video, he has maps. And he shows the St. Lawrence and Quebec and all that. I don't have maps to show that. So the result: Amherst will not allow the French to surrender with honors. They would be taken prisoner. So on the previous page, how the British were let with honors, the Walk of Honor, he will not be allowing the French to have honors. On August 27th, 1758, Broad Street sieges Fort Frontenac. The fort falls and is destroyed. The result of this: French supply and communication is now out on each side of Lake Ontario. On September 14th, 1758, a British allotment is attacked near Fort Duquesne. An attachment, excuse me. On November 23rd, 1758, Forbes approaching army burns Fort Duquesne. Fort Duquesne is destroyed. On November 25th, 1758, Forbes' men secure the forks of the Ohio River. 1759, in 1759 spring, the forks of the Ohio River has new fort. It's Fort Pitt. Has a trading post to it. And trading post for different people to trade items. On July 22nd, 1759, Amherst surges Fort Carillon. The result of that, on July 26th, 1759, Amherst secures Fort Carillon. British will rebuild fort as Fort Ticonderoga. On July 26, 1759, Purdue forces secure Fort Niagara. In August 1759, the French destroyed and abandoned Fort St. Frederick. The result, Amherst built a new fort called Crown Point. Because of this, he built his own fort. On September 13th, 1759, Wolfe makes a daring landing above Quebec, surprising the French. The result, on Plains of Abraham, both Montcalm and Wolfe are killed. Quebec falls to Britain. This was a turning point because Quebec was a big area that the French secured, and when it falls to Britain, it's pretty much over for the French. Excuse me. On April 28th, 1760, the French attempt to take Quebec back. In August 1760, Amherst takes Fort Louis. On September 8th, 1760, Montreal is surrounded. Government of New France surrenders, and that is huge, when the whole government of France surrenders. Results, Amherst denies the French the honors of war, and French soldiers are taken as prisoners. Once again, this was the second time. On October 25th, 1760, George III takes the throne, and this was in Britain at the time. This is in America, that was at Britain. So a new time in Britain history was when George III took the throne. 1762, Britain declares war on Spain. Now, this is on a different tip, but we're getting near the end of the Indian-French War. War era, I should say. And this he kind of leaves this an open-ended, kind of discussion here. In summer of 1762, British seizes Havana, Cuba. And Cuba at that point is a huge area. It still is a fairly decent area in modern day, but this leads up to the Britain and Spain War. On February 10th, 1763, the Treaty of France is ratified. The war is officially over for the French and Indian War. The Treaty of Paris is what this treaty was. The British is now in possession of French Northern America. Alliance to the Mississippi River. And what happens is the French that captured Cuba gave Cuba back to Spain. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoy what you saw. I wanted to try something new. If I watch this, it might go on YouTube. So if you like what you see, please feel free to give this video a like, as it really does help my channel. Wanted to try something new and see if you guys like it. Have a great day, and I love you guys. All right, bye.